And I was, and it seems distant now. And my previous life, which I thought would only ever get worse, and I thought it would only ever get worse. It just all went. It all went, and it's stayed gone.
Tom, how did you find keto?
How did I find keto? By accident. In about 2020, for a different reason. I've had MS since I was since about 2000, since I was 19, and I've lived with the symptoms of that for 20 odd years. But my dad was diagnosed in 2020 with type 2 diabetes. So me being more into YouTube around that time, I just got straight online and was type 2 diabetes, blah, blah, blah. And I came across a man called Mr. Ken Berry, who's had many plaudits for good reason as well. He's a bit of a hero of mine. I can't remember which particular video, but it was about cutting your carbs down. How you don't. It doesn't have to be progressive type 2 diabetes, and you don't have to live with it. You can rid yourself of it. So I thought, I'm not letting this happen to me. I've got MS already, and I've had a lifetime of struggle. So I sort of implemented that. And of course, the algorithm rewards you with, multiple videos from different people. So I just did a deep dive, like many have done, down the rabbit hole. I was like, okay, so we don't need to eat that. We don't need to eat that. Carbohydrates aren't necessary, all the normal sort of stuff. So I implemented this. I went in hard. I thought, no, I'm going to go zero carb. And now I'm speaking to you. Zero carb. So I just cut all the sugars, all the pasta, the rice, blah blah blah, all the carbs. And I've been struggling with MS for 20 years, like I said, and I live with a whole host of symptoms for pretty much all of that time. With varying severity day to day, but never a clear day. And it got me down so much. I couldn't compete in the workforce, sportily against my peers. I was like an old man compared to my peers, let's say. And I don't know, within a couple of days, I'd had 2 days symptom free, which I'd never had since my diagnosis. And I was thinking, well, I can't be, it's multiple sclerosis. It's a bad disease. It can't be that simple. I'll wait for it. I'll wait for them to come back. And this turned into a week, and me and my wife had a cuddle and a bit of a cry. I was like, I think this is working. I haven't felt this good in years. I mean, the numbness in my left side disappeared. It would vary from a light pins and needles to, I would call it thick pins and needles, like a dense pins and needles, so that you completely altered sensation. The left hand and the left leg were weak, and I just they didn't feel right. They were a bit spastic. There's a bit of spasticity there. That resolved. The brain fog, which has been crippling me for years, ever since that first symptom of MS when I was actually in the forces. My brain hasn't been the same since it first came on. I could sleep for hours and not be rested in the least, and it all went. and it's all stayed gone. And I've purposefully tested myself, like probably after a couple of 3 weeks, I was like, I can do things in the evening after work instead of just lie and hope that my legs would get enough energy for the next day. And it seems distant now, and my previous life, which I thought would only ever get worse, and I thought it would only ever get worse. It just all went. It all went, and it's stayed gone. And I've tested by introducing things I shouldn't eat, and literally, you can feel things creeping back in. The slight dizziness, like feeling a bit unsteady. Brain fog will return. A few pins and needles sometimes across the left of the scalp. My leg would feel weak again and like tire really easily. I'd fast because I'm using intermittent fasting as well. I'd fast and then get back on keto only foods, and it would literally the next day I would be back good again. So I've done that test many times, and it's been about 3 years now. Yes, it's a terrible disease. And the reason I commented and you invited me on the show was watching Dennis. Do you remember Dennis? He had primary progressive MS, which is the worst MS you could be diagnosed with because it's primary and it progresses. I had relapse and remitting, so I had a series of relapses. Pretty much when I was diagnosed back in 2000, probably to 2002, I probably had 3 or 4 relapses, and they were treated with steroids by the doctors just to calm down the inflammation. Yeah. So
can I just
go on?
Could I just clarify one thing? What's the difference between a relapse and then the day-to-day struggle you would have had with MS before?
Right. So when I was relapsing, the symptoms were much more severe and much more limiting. So you relapse, and it can last from a day to months. I did have one relapse, and I wasn't sure that it had actually gone into remission, and I wasn't sure whether this was just how I was going to live now, and that each time you relapse, damage is done to your myelin and your central nervous system, and then obviously when you're in remission, it stops, but you're not as good as you were before because of the damage that was done. So obviously, the more relapses you have, the more disease progresses. And the last relapse, I didn't have any treatment for it. I've felt awful. I had terrible brain fog and numbness, dizziness. The dizziness was the most crippling of all. It could strike at any time. There was like always an underlying dizziness, like a slow dizziness. It was always like unstable. But then it could turn into like a sudden vertigo, like a 5G spinning round, literally knock you off your feet, and you'd be grabbing onto tables. And this would happen randomly, which you can't live with. You can't go up a ladder. You can't. Very hard to deal with.
So those are the relapses, but then like on a day-to-day basis, what you were dealing with was, aside from things like the dizziness, that was like the numbness and things like that.
Yeah, the numbness, the brain fog was one of the worst things. Like, my brain was never the same since that first time until 2020 when I discovered keto, and I feel normal again. I got to the point where I couldn't remember what normal felt like because I'd lived with it for so many years. Like it got to the point where I could only do 2 days a week at work because I'm a gardener, you see, which is not ideal. But I didn't want to give in to start with, and I've sort of got stuck in gardening. I run my own business. It got to the point where I was so miserable. All I could do was work, and only like 6.5 hours. And then I would literally lie on the sofa. My legs would be like lead, like primarily the left leg, but both of them really. So that if I had to go to the toilet up the stairs, it would be like the last steps to Everest sort of thing. The fatigue in my legs was the most crippling thing, and it wasn't ever rested by sleep. So I could be so tired. I'll go to bed at like 9 and get say 12 hours sleep, and I would be exactly the same the next day. I wouldn't feel rested in the least. So I got to a point where I was doing 2 days. I could manage 2 days in a row at a push, and then literally, so the Tuesday evening, I would lie on the sofa all night. My wife would help me. I mean, I wasn't lazy. I wanted to do things, but it's just and the more tired I would get in the legs, the more brain fog will come on. And if I really overdid it, the dizziness would come back like properly full on. I lost count of how many days off I had to have because of dizziness. I literally couldn't get out of bed. I had to lie in one position, and if you move your head slightly, boom, it spins again. I nearly got admitted to hospital once. That was pre-diagnosis because the diagnosis process went on for quite a long time, and I had all these weird symptoms. And I was just, we didn't have a computer at that time. 2000 that was. I think we only had dial-up, and I found a bit of information. I was like, an MS came up, and I was like, oh no, I'm sure it's only stress or something like that. And you kid yourself. I was like, I've hit a lot of those symptoms there.
Do you have a regular doctor or neurologist that you see about the MS, and what do they think? Or
I have
they noticed anything?
Sorry, I'm registered with a neurologist. I think I saw them a couple of times. Never the neurologist. You see the MS nurse. In fact, I've never actually seen her. I only ever phoned her, and I'd phone her. It was always worse in the summer, which is my time for gardening. It's my prime time, but I couldn't handle the heat, like even like 21-degree heat, and it would make me even weaker and even more tired. And I remember calling her a couple of times and explaining things, and she was just like, sounds like your brain stem is inflamed and you just need to rest. And that's pretty much that. There was nothing really they could do for me. You sort of diagnosed, and then you go out and you discover your own disease and how it affects you, because it's different in everyone. Obviously, if I was relapsing and really bad, then they could give me, like I said, the steroids. But other than that, I think it's quite limited. It can just do what it wants with you.
Like the day-to-day now must be, it's chalk and cheese, right?
Oh, 100%. 100. That's why I had to leave that comment. I've told so many people around me, obviously. It's completely different. I am, to all intents and purposes, perfectly normal now. Like today, I woke up at 5 o'clock for some reason. I was just bolt awake. Went to work. Me and my work buddy cut this huge hedge that you have to be on ladders for, and we're reaching with heavy hedge cutters all day until, and it's been freezing today, like -5 in the wind chill, really bitter. There's no way I could have done this at like gone 11 o'clock in the evening. I'd just be dead. I'd be so asleep. It's just no way. And like I said in my comment as well, I started playing golf again. Like I've been doing that after work. I mean, I used to play golf pre-MS when I was up until 16. I loved golf. And I thought it was something I'd never play again, because I didn't even have the energy to play with the children after work. It is chalk and cheese, night and day, completely different.
That's awesome. And how have family and friends reacted?
Like I said, that first week when I tried the Ken Berry video on the for type 2, and I was reading, and he did some more, and he was on about it's a low inflammation diet, and I put two and two together and thought, well, MS is a disease of inflammation, primarily of the central nervous system. So I was like, well, we'll carry on with it, because, you know, reduce. And then I learned all about inflammation from other people, and I was like, so simple, actually. It's so kind of obvious. And like I said, me and Sally had a cry together. I was like, I really think this is working. She's like, I can't believe the difference in you. Like, another thing was the grumpiness, because of how put on I felt and how much of a struggle it was to get through the day, and then be worrying about, have I got enough energy to do tomorrow, because I slightly overdid it today and my legs are really throbbing and like just dead, like made of lead. I would be quite grumpy, and she put up with a lot. She's a brilliant woman, and she's helped me through this so much. And she's adopted keto as well, and lost all of her stubborn baby weight. She was a bit overweight, and she's just gone. She's like size 8 now and healthy looking. Another thing was, at the time, the dad got diagnosed with type 2. I was drinking most evenings, like just a few beers, but I'd put on, like, I've always been lean and not quite muscly, just lean, muscly. I was like round faced and had a gut. Anyway, I started this that first week, and I was peeing a lot, and I thought, oh, that's weird. But I'd always peed a lot and thought it was down to the MS. You know, you can get bladder problems. And the weight just fell off. That I lost 2 stone, and I had a 6-pack again, and I was like, my God, I haven't done anything differently except for changing the foods. I hadn't done any extra exercise, because that was another thing. Exercise, I could never understand how people did exercise. They had jobs and then they did exercise. My intolerance to exercise, I could do work. Literally, I've spent the last 20 years doing work and then recovering from work enough so I could do more work. And that's what made me miserable and grumpy. And I got to the point, I said to Sal, I was like, I don't think I can do gardening anymore. I can't, even with the Monday and the Tuesday, the Wednesday off, literally lying on the sofa with my legs throbbing and burning, lying there and trying to relax all day so that I could go in Thursday and the Friday, and then try and set the jobs up so they weren't too hard. But it's hard work.
And sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I just, when you're saying that, I feel like the fact that it's forced relaxation as well means, to me, would feel like it's not actually relaxation.
No.
If someone tells you go over there and relax, you can't relax, right?
No. I mean, this was me telling myself I had to, because I had to. I literally fatigue. I understand what fatigue is after living with MS for this time. Fatigue's different to tiredness. Fatigue is just a killer. Like literally, if you're fatigued and you need to lift a piece of paper up and hand it, my arm is burning. You know, they're like a lactic acid burn. If you sprint until your legs can give no more. Well, I would get that in my left side after minimal exertion. So I like a body of two halves, basically. So my right side has been like trying to carry me through all of this. So I had bad back, bad hip, bad knee on the right side, just from like going up. I'd go up steps with the right leg, just because it was so tiring. Like just a few steps, my left quad would be burning. Like I just run, I don't know, like a normal person would be after they've done a massive sprint or something like that. Yeah, and now I've got two halves. So the friends and family have been super supportive. They've obviously noticed the difference in me. I can do things.
That's awesome. And how many kids do you have?
Two, a boy and a girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they must be happy that you can keep up with them now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It hurts me that I missed out so much because they're 14 and 17 now, boy and girl. But there was so many days, and especially in the summer, because it's a bit chilled out in Cornwall. It's not like the big cities. It's like a bit surfy and a bit chilled out. So I'd finish at like 3 o'clock was late for me on a weekday. But normal people, if they finish at that time, kids finish then, and then you go off to the beach. So I never did that. I literally never did it. We got big green space out the back of our house, and I'd occasionally go out there and 10 minutes, and I'd be like, I need to go in. I was like an old man, all through my 30s. I literally started this journey at 40, and I've never felt this good. I literally haven't.
That's great. It's I never cease to be awed by people talking about, I just changed my diet and everything changed. It's just like a switch.
And to the layperson, to the let's say normie, who doesn't do any research or look anywhere, it is pretty much unbelievable. And they look at you like, oh, that's good for you. It's like, don't know what he's on. I've tested this time and time again, because even I was like that. I was like, yeah, but it's multiple sclerosis. I went in an MRI machine. I lost, like in the early days when I had a relapse, I lost the use of my left eye. The muscles or the nerves of it, and it went down in the corner and was looking down in the corner. I had no control over it, but it was seeing perfectly still. So I had an image from my right eye that was looking straight forward, and an image that was over there, and my brain just could not put the two together. So I wore an eye patch over the left eye for, it must have been 3 or 4 weeks. And then eventually it came back. But that was one of the worst things, having these two completely different images. Yeah. But,
wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, you know, to the person that's never really thought about this kind of stuff, if you want to call them the lay person, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, he's going to start selling me religion soon, you know, or he's going to invite me to an Amway meeting or something like that.
I probably was a bit guilty of that in the first. I was so blown away, and I was learning things every night, all the time. I was watching content from different people. I've written a list because I can't remember names. Obviously, Ken, Big Berry, Eric Berg, Ekberg, Sten Ekberg, Paul Mason, Jason Fung, all the low carb down under guys, Bart Kay, Eric Westman, and just cramming it all in, and just, you know, it's like to go down the rabbit hole, and you're just like, wow, mind blown. And I can remember it, watching this Ken Berry, the original Ken Berry video, and thinking, all right, okay, maybe. Like, sounds a bit too good to be true. And I think then the algorithm sent me an Ekberg one about inflammation and that sort of thing. I was like, yeah, but it's MS. You know, come on. It might help me lose the weight. Anyway, it did it all. Even though we're 3 years in, and I've sort of forgotten the old life that I used to go on about a lot. It did a lot of damage to me. I was very low. I was underconfident, very low, felt awful all the time, which fed into that. But it works. It works. And watching the Dennis video, he was nodding, wasn't he? He said, and shaking. I mean, I wasn't that bad. And that was another thing I was going to say to you. All the people that ever saw me were like, I come from a small town. It was like, oh, Tom went to join the Air Force, and now he's come back after only a couple of years. And it would have gone around the town. Oh, he's got MS. That's terrible. But I never looked any different, apart from when my eye went down in the corner. I didn't really go out then either because I had an eye patch on. I've always looked slim and like athletic, I suppose. So I've never looked any different. So to other people, they must have thought, he looks fine. He still sounds the same. It's like most of it was hidden, you know?
Yeah. So it's like you got everything going on inside, but they're like, oh, he looks great. No problems.
Yeah. I struggle with, like, I've gone from doing, I joined as an Air Force technician. I passed all the aptitude tests. And then you do a BTEC in aerospace engineering. So there's a lot of engineering science in there and stuff. I used to love that until the symptoms started. And I just couldn't get anything. It's like I dropped, I don't know, 50 IQ points overnight. As soon as the MS started, I couldn't retain information. I couldn't take in new information. I couldn't do simple things. It just, so that career just became untenable.
Wow.
Untenable. Yeah. And I left of my own volition in the end because I had a medical board where you get to go and see a forces like top doctor, and they assess you. And he said, would you like to continue with training? Because I was on my trade training at the time. I said, yeah. I was like, I don't want to give up on this. I'd signed up for 9 years. It's going to be a good career, loads of travel, blah, blah, blah. But I remember this. So he put me back into training eventually. So I had a new course I was with and got to meet some new chaps. We had a big aircraft hangar that they used to train people in. And I don't know if you've heard of the Harrier Jumpjet aircraft. They had an old retired one in there that the students used to take parts of and learn on. And I remember when we first walked in there, I thought, oh, great, there's a Harrier there. I can't wait to work on that. It's going to be brilliant. And so I got put back into training, and I wasn't right. And looking back now, I wasn't right. We still had to do standing attention and marching between buildings and stuff. And historically, I've been good at, like, like drill, because I used to be in the cadets when I was younger, and we used to do a lot of drill marching and turning and blah blah blah. So that wasn't a problem. There was this one time I remember I was put as right hand marker, which is like everyone takes their pace and the step from the right hand marker, because I'd always been good at it. I could not march in time. I kept getting out of time, and I couldn't do it. Just out of nowhere, I was like, "What is going on?" My brain didn't work.
It was almost like a confused kind of thing.
Yeah, like my body didn't work like it always had. The story I was going to tell, I keep coming up with other things. The Jumpjet, we got to work on it one day, and I suppose if you stand on the back of them, they're probably 15 feet high on the spine of them, maybe a bit higher, I don't know. And there was a ladder up to it. And I think 3 of us went up there, and we had to take there's like a trapdoor thing off and get in and look for something. I got the ladder, and I was holding on with both hands. Right, we're all young men, and you don't get into the forces if you're not fit. Everyone's fit and healthy, and I'm like an old crippled dude. I'm like holding on to the ladder, and I can't stand up like on the back of the wings, this big area, and I'm like down on one knee. I'm like, I can't do this, just because of the dizziness, and I'm looking ruined.
Yeah, if someone's watching this and they've had a diagnosis of MS, and they think, okay, well, I want to know what this is. Like, can you kind of talk us through, paint a picture of how you're eating during the day?
How I'm eating? I'm right. I'm not eating until probably about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Sometimes, right? We'll get back onto this. I'll just make a quick note. Put that. Sorry, because that's an interesting thing as well, I found. To start with, I was like, how do I get rid of carbs? It's like, in pretty much all of my jobs I've ever had, I've had a packed lunchbox, right? And that's consisted of sandwich, probably ham and cheese, chocolate bar, a packet of crisps or chips to the Americans, and that's pretty much it. I was like, what do you eat if you don't eat a sandwich? I was like, I really didn't know. I was like, what could I? Nothing will fill me up. What? I don't. Anyway, fast forward to the Ken Berry video, and now tin of sardines in olive oil, which it's brilliant. They are like manna from heaven, and my body is like, yes, you want them, and I just really want it. It speaks to me. It's like my body is saying that's what you need, the fats in it, and crunching up the little bones and all the little collagen, and it's just lovely. I have a handful of nuts, like raw pecans, walnuts, a little square of dark chocolate, and a little bit of cheese, like mature cheddar or something. And that does me. Sometimes I don't even want my evening meal. Really, evening meal, we eat a lot of ground, I call it ground beef, mince is what we call it here. So we have bolognese quite a lot. We're quite known for it. What are you having tonight, Tom? Spag bowl? It's like people say that to me. It's like the only thing we have. Chili con carne. We had obviously steaks. What else do we have? Chicken occasionally. Wings I'm into at the moment. Purely the skin I like. It's mostly skin wings, and it's just lovely. And I pretty much have that same lunch every day, and then sometimes I'll have bacon and eggs for lunch, which is no hardship, is it?
Nice. So again, for the kind of the layperson, they might be thinking sardines and olive oil, some nuts and a piece of dark chocolate, that I'd be hungry after 10 minutes with that level of food. Can you explain how that keeps you satiated versus, you know, the 3,000 kilos of carbs that you would have eaten
Yeah.
before, kind of thing?
Well, this is the thing that I realized as well. Once you turn your body over to fat burning, that's the key. I think that's the key to reversing disease or starting on the process of at least fixing your disease or feeling better. Once you break the fuel being carbs and get onto it, burning fat, it changes everything. It literally changes. Satiation changes big time. And that's what I wrote down. I was going to come on to that. So I could talk about that for a second. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? Okay. So I'm a carby person, right? I'm a normal person. So I'd have, hated it, never hungry in the mornings, but I was like, I'll never get to lunchtime unless I eat something. So I'd have like 2 slices of toast in the morning, maybe some cereal, bananas. That was another thing. They're healthy. Sometimes I have a couple of bananas and some toast with marmalade on it. So it's like, whoa. And I work with a guy called Bruce, who I employ. And when he first started with me, I'd get to like probably, so I'd start at 9. I'd have this breakfast at 8. I'd start work at 9. Some days, 10:30, I would be like that. I'd be like, oh, I'm so hungry, feeling lightheaded. I'd be like, Bruce, I've got to eat. He's like, really? It's like, yeah, and I'd have to go in the van on my own because he wasn't hungry. He didn't need his lunch yet. And I'd have to eat my sandwich with the crisps and all of that. But once you starve yourself for carbs and you eat fat and protein and you turn your body over to fat burning, it's another world. And I was like this for my whole life. I could not go probably more than 3 hours without eating. And I remember this one time, me and my wife met with some friends at this nice park near Milton Keynes, near London. And we were going to go for a walk. I think we had Ruby in the pram, but they were childless. And it was a nice walk around a big lake and a stately home as well. And I'd eaten breakfast, and we went on this walk, and it turned out to be a lot longer than we thought, like probably 2 miles longer than we thought. And I had the shakes worse than I ever have. Like we had to leave them on this walk, me and Sally, and we raced back to the car. I was like as fast as I could. There was nothing in the car except for mint Imperials. There was a big bag of mint Imperials, and I was just crunching these mint Imperials. I was like white. I was white and like, oh my God. This used to happen as well at the end of work, before tea time in the evening. If I'd had like a hard afternoon, I'd just go through the cupboards, just cramming stuff in. I needed it. Now, seriously, this was one of the biggest things. This was one of the biggest things within that first week. I was like, I started eating this stuff, and like I didn't want my evening meal. So I'm being physical at work on the sardines and the chocolate or whatever. After not eating breakfast as well and not eating from the night before. And I was like, stable energy. It's a game changer. Get fat adapted, guys. That's the thing. That's the key to it.
It really is, right? It's empowering as well to know if I've got to go into a meeting or I've got to travel a long way to a customer or something, and I'm not going to have any food for 5, 6, 7 hours, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be fine.
Exactly. when we used to go on days out with the kids, like we'd say at a weekend on the Friday, we'd be like, oh, we're going to do the weekend. Oh, we could go, I don't know, here to this place, because I don't like busy places, so we tend to go to like the moorland. I don't know if you know what moorland is, like scrubby heathland with granite boulders that no one farms on. It's quite beautiful. It's like ancient. There's old stone circles there from the past, and it's just wild, basically. Places like that. But with everything would be built around where are we going to eat then? Where are we going to eat? And now, because my kids sort of pretty much do keto, and so does Sal. So we could get up, we can go out, we can go somewhere, we can do what we were doing, and then come back home and eat something without ever having thought of, oh, which restaurant are we going to go to, or which fast food is around, or where can we get some food. Totally different.
Yeah, it's just this nice sustained amount of energy. And as we're talking about this, I'm just reminded of something. You know, you're not experiencing that fatigue anymore. And for anyone watching, they should really know this is 11:30 p.m. for you right now, right?
Yes.
You know,
yeah,
and
exactly.
you've still got energy after someone who's suffered so much over 20 years from fatigue. It's 11:30 at night, and yeah, you're still going.
It really is. Like you said, chalk and cheese, 9 day. Like when I feel like Sally did so much when the kids were young, obviously, night feeds, that sort of thing. She used to let me get away with it all the time, because I would be dead to the world. And another thing, if I had the slightest disruption, I'd feel like death. Like my symptoms would be worse the next day. Not just tired, but I'll be like, oh, I don't think I can go work. And it'd be another whole wasted day just from like maybe hour and a half disrupted sleep, and probably still getting like 7 or 8 hours. I'm a different person.
Nice. So Tom, do you have an Instagram or a YouTube if people want to reach out to you?
I don't have Instagram. I do have a YouTube account, but I don't really want anyone to reach out to me. I just wanted to get my message out there to say, if you're in a desperate situation like I was, and I thought this is the best it's ever going to be as well. With MS, it's like that's what you're told. It's like it's not really getting any better, and so I was always thinking, right, how I am at the moment, that's the best it's going to be. You're never going to get any better. If there's someone out there in a similar situation that might see this, that's my job done. If they then go and search some of the people that I've listed and maybe listen to my ramblings and think, oh, that could work for me, that's good enough for me. I can slink off back into obscurity. Yeah, and I'd also like to give a shout out to a young woman who's helped me as well. Her name's Gemma Ilsley, and you can find her on Facebook. She's a personal trainer and fitness coach, and she helped me get a lot of strength back in my left leg, because that's been wasting for so many years. And yeah, she's a top girl. She's just started the business and she's not got many customers yet. So I just thought this might help her. So thank you very much.
Nice. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. It's been a pleasure.